welcome to Caregiver Relief. I'm your host, Diane Carbo, registered nurse, and this podcast is dedicated to supporting family caregivers as they navigate the emotional, physical, and spiritual challenges of caring for those they love. Before we begin today's episode, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever wondered what happens when we die? Near-death experiences are reported by thousands of people who have come close to death and returned with powerful stories of what they saw, felt, and experienced. But what happens when that experience isn't just light and peace, but something far more complex? Today, we're exploring one woman's remarkable journey through a dark, near-death experience, her survival in the ICU, and the profound lessons she learned about caregiving, compassion, and what truly matters in life. My guest today is Kathy McDaniel, author of the book Misfit in Hell to Heaven Expat, where she shares her powerful story of a dark near-death experience, a glimpse of heaven, and life-changing lessons that followed. After surviving a critical illness that left her in the ICU and rehabilitation for months, Kathy began reflecting deeply on what patients experience, what caregivers need to understand, and how compassion can transform the healthcare journey. Her book and message have resonated with many people seeking hope, understanding, and peace around life, death, and caregiving. You can learn more about Kathy at her work at misfitinhelltoheavenexpat.com and connect with her on Facebook as well. This episode is sponsored by myvitalvault.net, your all-in-one life organizer for aging adults and caregivers. It's designed to help you securely store your essential legal, medical, and emergency information in one easy-to-access place. Because when a crisis hits, being prepared can make all the difference. Join our Caregiver Relief community, a warm, welcoming space where you can connect with other caregivers, ask questions, share stories, and find support from people who truly understand. Visit community.caregiverrelief.com to join now, because caregiving is one of the hardest and most meaningful things you'll ever do, and no one should have to do it alone. And if this episode speaks to you, please take a moment to like, share, or comment. Every click helps us reach more caregivers who need encouragement, resources, and hope. Kathy, I am really excited that you're here to join us today and share your experience and your story.
Thanks, Diane. I'm really happy to be here. I really am.
Before we talk about your near-death experience, can you tell us a little bit about your life before the event and what led to your medical crisis?
Sure, I had a pretty normal life. I was a Catholic from day one, so I had those spiritual instincts that would later show up in my near-death experience, I believe. But anyway, I was asked by my best friend, former fiance, to come help him up in Seattle because he had leukemia and he needed a couple caregivers. I had just retired from being a property manager. I had my own company and I had the time and, of course, the inclination since we were still very close. So I came up to Seattle and they said it would be a 3 to 5 month ordeal. And there was 2 of us and it was around the clock care. I had never been a caregiver before, just a mom, and there was a lot of work to it. We didn't sleep much. There was a lot of stress, and he finally passed away, which broke my heart. And so here we are 9 months into this no sleep, lots of stress stuff. So when I went to a concert over Christmas with a friend, I caught this COVID-like flu that was going around in Southern California. And so by the time I got back, I was deathly ill, literally. And by the time I got myself to an emergency, one of those little emergency doc in the boxes, my friend had taken me there and I passed out and woke up in the hospital. They said my heart had stopped, but they got it going. And I had what they consider ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome, also known as lung failure. And I was 52 years old, had been in good health. And now they said, boy, you've got a slim chance of pulling through. We really don't know how to treat it. It's not really an illness. It's something that doesn't respond to medication. So we're going to have to put you in this drug-induced coma. We'll throw the book at you, medically speaking, and cross our fingers. Everybody on base. My whole family had gathered from all over the country, and then it was the consensus that was the only thing to do. So the last thing the physician told me was, we're going to take your brain offline, and you're not going to be able to remember anything that happens, and you will or will not wake up. And I said goodbye to the family, and off I went. It did go black. But then I woke up. And I thought, wait a minute, where am I? It was totally black. There was no sound. I had no idea what was going on, and I was afraid to move, so I just hung out. And not too long of a wait, and all of a sudden I saw this kind of reddish fog start happening in front of me, and I thought the sun was coming up. I'd be able to see where I was. And then it was smelling really bad. It got a little too warm in there. And then I started hearing noises, screaming, people wailing. And I thought, oh gosh, this can't be good. And then all of a sudden out of this fog came this voice, you know where you are. My good Catholic upbringing turned on a light bulb and said, hell? And that thing just wah, laughing. So I took off into the darkness. To shorten this up, it was a very long experience that was made up of segments. Diane, the lights would go out, I'd stop wherever I was, and then the lights would come up, and I'd be in some strange situation. Like the first one was this bombed out city with zombies walking around and people screaming and fires and everything. And then I came to a part there where I fell and I thought I was going to die, and the lights go out. I'd freeze wherever I was, which was in darkness, and the lights had come up. And there would be a time I was having a very pleasant, let's see, how would we call that? That would be some sort of a discussion with a demon-like character who wanted me to cut down an entire field of blackberry bushes, and he'd help me get out. When I went to do that, it was an impossible task. The lights went out. The lights came up. There was this road that I was walking on. A lot of the time, it was just a road that just to nowhere. It went east or west, north or south. I had no idea. There was just no stars, no moon, nothing, just darkness, but this reddish glow at the horizon that looked like maybe a fire coming up. And I'd kept walking. Had no idea where I was. It really didn't cross my mind that I wasn't dead. You don't feel dead. And there was unpleasant things that happened there. It went on and on. Finally, I got to the last. I didn't know it was going to be the last one, but I was in this horrible situation with these poor women. We'd all been abused, and they were going to make it worse. And so I said, gee whiz, to the demon lady that was in charge of us. I've been here a long time, and it's a really particularly nasty day. Anything I should know? She says, oh, it's Christmas on Earth. That's always the worst day in hell. And I thought, hell? Oh my gosh. And being the brat that I am, I thought, oh, this will get her. And I started singing a Christmas carol, which did irritate her. And then when I got to the part of away in a manger, no crib for his bed, the little Lord got to the next word, was not out of my breath. And then I was thrown out again, but this time it was into this incredible bliss. You can't describe it. There's no words. You're rolling in this love and joy, and nothing exists but this joy in you, which is all one. And as I tumbled in this, you don't want it ever to stop. But it seemed like the clouds were coalescing, and it turned into this, I don't know, cathedral-like room. There was no cross or anything like that, just marble. And there was my friend, the one that had died the month before. He looked great. He didn't look like he died of leukemia. He looked younger. He looked instead of 53, lived about 35. He was wearing a sweater I'd given him. He was happy. And I thought to myself, oh, criminy, he doesn't know he's dead. And then he started laughing. And I thought, now I didn't say that out loud. Oh, Lordy. And then I thought, wait a minute. He was showing me something. There was a book, big book on a table, and it was about halfway open. And he was showing me all this stuff in there. And I said, oh, no, 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 no. That's going to be too hard. I'm going to stay here with you. So then I said, he said, now, and he got a little bit closer and he says, now, Mary Kay, that's my name, Mary Kathleen, you've got too much left to do. And I thought, oh my gosh, they're throwing me out. And I thought, no, you have no idea how hard it was to get here. No, I just stamped my foot, crossed my arms, and just reiterated, no. Lights went out, lights came back up. Now there's people milling around. It's too hot. I can hardly talk. I look, and then my daughter turns around and says, Mom's back. And I thought, what? And I had been in this coma for 18 days. The doctors had given up. They said that she's not going to make it, say her goodbyes. And then all of a sudden, I was back. And thank God I had the trach in and I couldn't talk because I was very angry. I thought, they said, oh, Mom, we've been praying for you. We brought you back. And I thought, oh, you terrible people. I was in heaven with my best friend, and you dragged me back to this. But I couldn't say anything. I could move one finger. The next day, the doctor came through, and 18 days in a coma is not a good idea. I'll go on to that in a little bit, but that's what happened. It took me it took a while to get off the ventilator. And then I had weighed 86 pounds, so I had no muscle mass. I had to go to a physical rehab facility for a month where I had to learn how to walk and talk and go upstairs and turn over and do everything again. I was like a baby. It was very humiliating because I had no muscle mass, no muscle memory. So I did that for a month, and now I am a shell of myself. I've had this horribly disturbing experience, and nobody wants to talk about it.
Oh. Kathy, at what point did you realize you were having a near-death experience?
It took 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I had nobody to talk to. My therapist said, gee whiz, I'll put PTSD on your chart, hon, but that's all I know what to do with. So I struggled. I wrote it. I kept writing it out, the whole thing out, thinking it would go out of my mind. It doesn't, because when you're on the other side, that's your spirit. It's not your human brain that's remembering it. You're really experiencing that. And so it took 10 years and a series of synchronicities. That's what we call them when it's time. I found my way up to Seattle, which is an hour away, to an IANS meeting, International Association for Near-Death Studies, where that's all they do. They study NDEs. And the dark or distressing is what they call them now, were not very well studied. So they were anxious to hear my story. And then I started finding other people that had this dark experience that they couldn't talk to anybody about. And in IANS, I started a sharing group once a month for people that have had these experiences. And that was about 4.5 years ago. And we've had hundreds of people come through. And Diane, when you look on the internet, there's at least 3 groups that are for coma survivors. Then, in addition to that, I ran across a book called Coma and Near-Death Experience by Alan and Beverly Pierce. And they've done extensive, all kinds of research abilities they have that have determined that people that have these dark or distressing near-death experiences, many of them have been in long-term comas. And if you are in a long-term coma, you have a sincerely high rate of these experiences. He has turned it around from what a lot of people determined was, oh, you were a bad person, you went to hell, which is ridiculous and not true. And number 2, there is no hell. We all have free will, and we're all part of God, who is all loving and all forgiving. Ask any of the thousands of people that have had these experiences. And anyway, his research has been very mind blowing to me. So I'm really going down that path now with him and IANS and a lot of other people to try and stop having, there's ways to have comas very much shortened, or you can not be put into a coma. Like in, I guess it's Salt Lake City at the Mormon Hospital. They have some wonderful program there where they keep people awake. So the thing about distressing near-death experience is nobody really has figured it out. We're in the middle, I think. It used to be just accepted that you were a bad person and went to hell, but that's out the window now.
The first thing I thought of, I am also a Catholic, and the first thing I thought of is purgatory.
Yeah.
I really did.
Yeah.
And I do, I know I worked in physical rehab, and there are people that are in comas for long periods of time. And I have never had anybody tell me about this dark experience. But I want to ask you, did your perception of time or reality change during this experience?
Oh, yeah. That up there, it's an eternal now. There is no time. And that's a little hard to get used to, but just the experience in heaven was just so real, so awesome. I still get choked up talking about it. It's definitely home. It changes everything when you get back and realize that we're just here for a short time. Most people understand that we are part of God. We come down here on purpose. We plan our lives, the things we want to experience. We go home and there's a life review, but it has nothing to do with punishment. It's just you get to see your life as it plays out, kind of like a movie. And then they turn it around and you get to see it again and feel what it was like to interact with you. So it's not quite a karma thing, but yeah, what you put out, you get to feel back. So if I'm been nasty or whatever to somebody, if somebody asks for money, they're homeless and I kick them, and I will get to feel how that person felt. If I'm a kind, nice person, I'll get to feel that too. And that's it's not a report card, but it's just the way we get to understand what our lives meant.
Wow. How did the experience change your understanding of life, death, and the purpose of being here?
Now if something weird or bad, quote unquote, bad happens to me, I don't rail at God and say, why do you keep doing things like this to me? I say, oh, okay, I planned that. There was a lesson in it for me. Let me consider what's going on there. And that's a huge thing to think that you've planned your life. Okay, I've been divorced 3 times. I've got problems with my kids, all that stuff. We all agreed that's what we were going to do. I agreed to be my children's mother. And even though I knew they were going to go through some tough times, I signed up for it. I signed up to have that near-death experience, the coma, the recovery, all of that, so that I could help other people. So instead of, again, thinking, why me? It's okay, I have a purpose. You feel so much better coming back and living here and having a purpose. You, Diane, have a purpose and you're fulfilling that. And I bet you it feels good.
I lost my mom at 18 years old, and I was angry at God for a long time. I have since understood that maybe it was meant to be, because I feel like I have to tell you, Kathy, I see people say they're fighting cancer, they're fighting, and I look at them as my experience is my mom had lung cancer. She had just left the oncologist's office. Going to the elevator, she was going to tell me, the doctor said, Louise, you beat lung cancer. You're going to have a great Christmas with the kids. I was in nursing school, just in the freshman group. I'm walking, goes in the elevator to go down and tell me the good news, and we were going to go Christmas shopping. And she threw a pulmonary embolism and died that night in intensive care.
Wow.
my perception of fighting cancer, and I've seen this played out over and over again I even worked at a cancer center for a while. And actually, I got fired because I told a patient that they should consider hospice. And you don't say that in a cancer center. But she did choose hospice the next day, but I got fired because that skews their research numbers.
Oh my gosh.
I'm cynical about some things. I really am. But now you spent time as a patient in ICU and rehab. What did you observe about the way patients are treated? That was very interesting to me.
This has been 26 years ago. I don't know how much it's changed, but
Worse.
oh God, that's terrible. Two experiences I had. It felt like I wasn't a person. It felt like I was this blob on the bed that was when I was out of the coma. I couldn't move. I couldn't eat. I had a nasal tube. I had IVs. I had the catheter, the whole thing. I'm all wired for sound there. I'm a pitiful thing. And one time a nurse came in and she was between me and the IV stick, whatever that with all the different, and she was fiddling with this and fiddling with that. And she leaned back and my IV, I guess it was my feeding tube, was hooked on a button on her sweater.
Oh.
And I couldn't talk. So she's moving and I can feel this thing coming up my throat. And so finally I just went, ah, and she turned around and said, what? And when she turned around, zip, that thing came sailing out of my throat, out of my nose. And she picked it up and looked at me and said, and came at me like she was going to put it down in my nose. And I thought, wait a minute, I think they do that under sedation. And I just went, and she said, then you better learn to eat. Not a, I'm sorry, nothing. So I couldn't tell anybody. I tried to memorize their name, but you know how you are when you get back.
Yes.
The other lady, this was like a couple days later, because she came in and I was laying on a pad. I guess I was urinating on the pad. I have no idea. I was just this little rag doll laying there. And she lifted me over to the side and said, I'd like to put you on a bedpan. And I couldn't say anything. And so she went and got that hard porcelain thing or whatever it is, and stuck it under my back and then rolled me back on top of it. So my back was thrown upwards and it hurt like hell. And I couldn't say anything. And she says, I'll be back in a couple of minutes. I watched that clock. It was hours. I'm trying to do ESP at the nurses station. And they walk by. Nobody came in.
Yeah.
Finally, I thought, well, I'm going to be paralyzed now. So anyway, she came back a little later and she saw me crying. I had tears just running down my face. And she says, what's wrong? Oh my God. She goes over and she pulls me over and she pulls it and she's rubbing my back. She says, oh, I don't think it broke the skin. You'll be fine. And flops me back down. So I thought, when I get out of here, I'm going to write something. And that's why I wrote my little How to Be a Successful Caregiver book, a pamphlet, because it's not okay.
Kathy, you would be shocked to learn that nursing has really taken a massive decline. And I know people that are listening to this are going to be upset I'm talking about it this way, but our government policymakers have just deemed that patients have rights. I get that. I really do. But now they have a right to fall. They have a right to develop pneumonia. They have a right to develop a decubiti. They have a right to develop thrombosis or clots in their legs because if they choose to. It makes no sense. They are, and nurses, this is what makes me shocked. Nurses are walking away instead of educating the patient on the complications of immobility and saying,
yes,
you're doing harm to yourself. We can't take no for an answer. This is for your better, for you. It's for you to have a successful recovery without complications. Just walking away and leaving them. I am seeing, and we also now are having the most unsafe discharges to home than I've ever seen before. The changes in reimbursement in Medicare for therapies has really negatively impacted our healthcare. The therapies facility, rehab or skilled care, gets a higher level of reimbursement for not providing therapy. Well, they are sending people home, and I have seen patients come home and they've had to be sent right back to the hospital. And recently, the most astonishing thing to me was not only was the patient sent home from the hospital within an hour because he injured his wife falling on her. He had to have surgery again on his back because he hurt himself. But they also found in the emergency room, and he's a severe diabetic, stage 3 wounds on his heels and his buttocks. And there was no documentation of it anywhere in his charts.
Oh, isn't that awful?
Yes, and this is truly happening because they are pushing nurses. We don't really have a shortage of nurses. We have a shortage of nurses who are willing to work in unsafe conditions. And we've also given away the best part of nursing, the knowledge that we have when we go to nursing school about treating a patient and preparing them right for doing skincare and massages and stuff like that has gone by the wayside. And we allow aides to be our eyes and ears now, but they're not trained to know what to look for. Really sad. So I want to know, what do you wish doctors and nurses better understood about patients while you were in a coma and in rehab?
The good thing again is another synchronicity. I ran across this book. I told you, Coma and Near-Death Experience by Alan and Beverly Pierce. And there is a hospital where they are letting the patients stay awake instead of putting them in a coma and just teaching them how to deal with whatever it's been happening to them. They walk around, they are allowed to interact with their families. He said one person walked by and saw a guy playing table tennis. There are new ways of handling that. And you're going to save so many people so much grief just from the near-death experience aspect of it. But they get in the hospital and they get out sooner. It's going to be cheaper in the long run for the medical profession. So I don't understand it.
They have a movement to move hospitals in the home.
Oh.
You know what? My concern is, yes, there'll be doctors overseeing it, and there'll be via televisits or whatever. But who is going to be providing the care is the family caregiver.
Right.
Now, here you were in a situation providing care for your friend that was dying, and did anybody teach you about turning him and bathing him and giving him skin care and mouth care and all of that?
No, we were told to keep the place clean. We had to Clorox the whole place down every night, and he couldn't have
that makes
some vegetables. I think that wasn't good for our lungs, all that pneumonia in the air.
Yeah.
No, it was sad. It's just so sad. Yeah. So I'm glad you got this program, and we've got to speak up. Something's got to change here. I know, taking care of my mom now, she's got dementia, and she's had it for several years. And for a while, I live in California. She lives in California. I live in Washington. Yeah. I was going down twice a month. And then I got pneumonia twice from flying back and forth and all this other stuff. So I had to stop that. I went once a month. That was too much. I went every other month. And now it was once a month and every 6 months. And now it's once a year because she's going to be 99. But I talk to her every night, and we got her a full-time caregiver. Now that's $22,000 a month. Yeah. And so thank God my dad had amassed some money that we didn't know about, but wow, it's expensive. I don't know. It's just gotten out of control.
And we also are in a serious situation right now where we have more seniors than youth. We have no one prepared to take care of our seniors. And We have 63 million family caregivers in the country now. That's going to double in the next 4 to 5 years when the baby boomers, finally, the youngest of the baby boomers retire.
Right.
We have no professional staff that wants to take care of them. We're having to look at computers and robots to provide care. And I just don't know how that's going to work, but we're going to have to go into communal living and stuff
I
because
think so.
we
Yeah.
just don't have it. Now, you have powerful advice for families with loved ones on ventilators or in comas. What should caregivers know?
In my little successful caregiver thing, I said, remember the word care. C is for consider and commit. Consider what you can do logically and then commit to it so that person knows what they're going to have. A is for always ask. We don't just go in and do for people. We have to ask first and listen to what they want and then go forward and give them that, which whatever you can. You've got to respect and respond. That's the R. Respect their dignity. Come on. And then you're not required to respond to someone says, I've got lung cancer, but I want a pack of cigarettes. You don't have to respond in that way. That's not being a caregiver. And then encouragement and easing. You've got to encourage them. And then you know when to ease off. When it's too much for you, you've got to be able to pull back and say, look, this is beyond what I can do. Otherwise, you're going to end up sick also.
Yes, and that's a big challenge. 63% of our caregivers become seriously ill or die from chronic stress
I
for the
believe
first.
that.
In fact, there's a new study that came out that people that provide care, they're saying that they lose 8 years of their life with illness, or they cut off 8 years of their life.
Yeah.
And when you're telling me we decide this, how can that be? But
Yeah, but I was told you get back from an experience like this and you're changed, man. You have been there, done that, and you have a new understanding of your life, which is I'm here for a purpose. And you get this voice that you can hear that sounds like your conscience, I said, all right, this conscience was talking. I said, all right, enough. I need to know what to do. I was a good Catholic girl, ended up what I thought was hell at the time, but it wasn't really hell. It was just a wake-up call. But it came back, you are to be loving and kind, merciful and forgiving, encouraging, grateful, non-judgmental, and useful. Useful, Kathy. So that became my mantra. I had a plan. I had a way to go forward. And it's so interesting, just being loving and kind to people instead of grouchy. It's contagious. They feel hurt and they were grouchy and you were nice and it's contagious. That's a good thing. The non-judgmental was hard for me because it's so easy for us to look at somebody else and criticize what they're doing. But the useful, there's a quote here that I got. Usefulness is the greatest joy in life. And once you find your purpose, it doesn't matter about the rest of it. You're going to do the job that you chose to do, and you wouldn't know the focus, you wouldn't know the direction if these things hadn't happened. So they were little signposts along the way that you planned. It just changes everything, Diane. I love my life now. I've done almost 200 of these podcasts. I've helped a lot of people that have had the distressing and near-death experiences. I'm working with Alan Pierce and some nurses. We're going to start doing presentations or help nurses to learn more about comas and try and get this long-term coma thing back where they used to use leeches for bloodletting. It's time to give that up. It's not working.
You're talking about drug-induced comas because I've had patients with head injuries.
Oh, no, that's not their fault.
No,
that's not. But when they do that, just to make it easier for the nurses to take care of more patients when you're just dealing with almost cadavers, they don't see that because you're 3 weeks in a coma, you're going to have 4 weeks in rehab just to learn how to walk and talk again. Yeah. They don't see that. And that destroys your image of yourself. Your family gets sick of it. It's just ridiculous. So yeah, it needs an overhaul.
In the
It really
olden
does.
days of nursing, I did rehab at Sister Kenny Institute in Minneapolis. I was there for several years. And I can tell you that was a really awesome place. They were the only rehab center at the time. Now they're everywhere. But we had many patients in comas, and we were told, talk to that patient all the time. And we did. When we turned them, we would say, tell them we're turning them, or we were going to brush their teeth, and we were going to clean them up or whatever. And you just talk to them all the time. And I'm a talker anyway, so I'll come in and help. And I just know some of these people in comas are saying, oh, shut up, please.
I don't remember anything that anybody said. My mom said we did this, we talked to you about this and that. And I think it's a good vibe.
Yeah.
I think that's a comforting vibe, but you're really somewhere else. Most of the time.
I'm wondering if your dark vibes came from negative experiences that were happening with your body, like a nurse that was not turning you, or you were in pain and you weren't getting any treatment. I'm just curious.
I think that could be part of the trigger. What we've all decided is we made our own hell. Being a Catholic, and I knew I was going to go to purgatory when I died, and there really isn't one, so I made my own. And it had to do with all these terrible experiences that I actually had in my life. I was in an earthquake when my town fell down, and that was the first scene. I had been raped, so there was a rape scene. There was all, and so after that, I've talked to a lot of people, and most of them say, yeah, I had segments. And I listened to what you said, and I can trace those all back. And 85 to 90% of the people I talk to that have distressing NDEs are Catholics. No.
Hey, Catholic guilt's real, girl. It's real.
Making this up. I just laugh every time I tell the story and ask any Catholics, and everybody's hand goes up. It's because you believed that shit. Excuse my expression.
You know what? I'll tell you what, Kathy. I tell people I'm a recovering Catholic.
Yes, recovering Catholic. I am.
Yes.
Yeah. You come back and you can't, I think a lot of people, quote, lose their religion because it's not what's really happening out there.
Religion is something different to me than spiritual. I mean, I'm spiritual. I believe in a higher power. I believe in a forgiving God or universe, our higher power. I don't think there's too much suffering here on earth to think that we're going to die and go to hell. I just can't, believe it. And I do believe that people that are criminals that kill people or hurt people in some way will have maybe an experience like yours for a while before.
No, actually, it's the life review. What about Hitler? I says, if Hitler gets the joy of experiencing every bit of terror and pain and tragedy that he inflicted on millions of people, I think he's probably only halfway through his life review about now. What else can you do to the guy? I mean, you give it right as karma. You put it out, you get it back, baby. So that's why I just say, put out the good stuff, folks.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love
that. And that's not God doing it. That's just that's what you put out and that's what you get back. So I spend a lot of time being nice. Really.
I try. Even though I'm imperfect sometimes, but we all are.
But you keep it in the back of your mind. I want this on my life review.
I love that. A life review. That is awesome. Now, for people who are afraid of dying or losing someone they love, what message would you like to share?
They're still there. My dad is right here. He's been gone, I don't know, 6 years or so, but whenever I need him, he's there. He'll flash lights for me. He'll find things I lost. Spirit is we're just going to a different dimension. They're all there and everybody looks about 35. It's great. But they're still there. They're not gone. They transitioned. They went to that other.
You know what? When I lost my oldest son to suicide, he was 35, and I always say he's been forever 35. He had a terrible pain condition. And I lost my mom to a complication of cancer, and I have had periods where they visit me. I know people think I'm a cuckoo, but
No,
it's not the same visit as you would think. I don't wake up and they're standing there talking to me. But here's a perfect example. I walk on the beach often in Myrtle Beach. And it's a beautiful day. I'm feeling down. In fact, I was walking on the beach that day because it was Jeff's birthday, July 20th. I go to the beach because we were in the water together. So I figure our cells are there somewhere. So every once in a while, just way to connect with him. And I still wear some of his shirts and stuff. And it's 15 years, going to be 15 years in September. Anyway, this young man comes up to me and he's got a bike he can ride on the sand. And he goes, "Ma'am, would you take my picture but with the pier behind it?" And I said, "Sure." He goes, "I'm on a ride for veterans who completed suicide." And to this day, I still get weepy about that. It brought me to my knees. Here it is. It's been 10 years, and this young man shares the story. We don't know each other at all. And his best friend was a soldier that also completed suicide.
Oh my gosh.
We both cried in that moment. And it's just like that was Jeff saying to me,
yes,
I'm still here. Yeah.
Or a song comes on and you just stop and you find something that you go, wait a minute, that wasn't there yesterday. They're right there. They are waiting for you. Saving a place.
And all my pets. I want all the pets and dogs I've ever interacted with to be there.
You got it. That people, I love the story of the lady that went up there and she's walking on the beach and all of a sudden she sees dust and so there's commotion coming toward her and she got scared and she was a dog breeder. Every dog she'd ever had. She said it was just this flock of dogs and they're all jumping up and barking. And they all went for a walk and she woke up and she said, "Oh, I want to go back there. All my dogs are waiting." And that's true.
Yeah. And that's what I believe. I have no fear of death.
Yeah.
I fear how I'm going to die, but that's another story.
Oh, I love Alan. He says, "I'm not afraid of death, but I just don't want to be there when it happens."
Exactly. Yeah. Kathy, it's been such a joy to talk. And I have so many clients and patients over the years that have such a fear of death. And I would love to have them learn more from you. How do they find you?
Facebook is a good way. It's MK McDaniel under my writing name.
What's your website?
It's www.misfitandhelltoheavenexpat.com. And there is a place to leave a message, and I always get back to people. Yeah.
I will put that information on. I create a permanent page.
Great.
And I will have all your links so that others can find you. And to my family caregivers out there, you are the most important part of the caregiving equation. Without you, it all falls apart. So please learn to be gentle with yourself. Practice self-care every day because you are worth it.